Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today, indeed, I have a Breitling, a brand that I have as yet to feature on the channel. So it is a pleasure to be able to feature this first Breitling piece that I have ever done. So this company, I hope, actually doesn't need much introduction. It is one of the strongest names in widespread, widely available horology, quality Swiss luxury. I guess you might call it entry level, but I think it's probably getting up to the mid tier. I think it's not, of course, super high luxury. It's not horology, but it's definitely up there in the Omega type of range, I think. So Breitling is established in 1884. It's most associated with aviation themed chronometer pieces and chronograph pieces. A lot of them are chronographs, and they are a company that at present at least send all their pieces for chronometer certification. So without further ado, let's just get into this particular box here. So you can see it's a solid, fairly big actually, card box on the outside here, and on the inside they have a rather nice travel style leather case here, with the logo of the company there. So I just want to put that aside first and then show you what's at the bottom here. So you got a support and then the manuals there. Okay, so that's the remainder of the box. I'm just going to put that aside, and the manuals are stored in this little card, Breitling yellow box here. Okay, and the electronic warranty actually, which is a nice touch actually. It's kind of like this permanently imprinted electronic details here, including the retailer. I know it's actually permanently imprinted on this, and apparently you can go into an authorized dealer and stick this on a device that will read it and confirm its authenticity. Okay, so they do have this digital, what I call digital warranty card here. And then the manual itself, this one's some promotional material for a Breitling book. I won't show you that. So this one's actually a certification for the chronometer nature of the watch. And this one, I think, is actually just a Breitling certificate. It's not actually a COSC official certificate by any means, but it's interesting that Breitling do give this, because many of the other pieces that I have, you don't get any pieces of certification, any papers to tell you it's a chronometer. You just kind of know that it is because it says so on the watch itself in Switzerland. Okay, so that's that. This one is the actual manual. Of course, this is not a full English, right? It's got multi-language, but it is specific for the Chronomat. For this model, I'm giving it away here, is the Chronomat. All right, so let you see the details there. 44 GMT is this particular watch with a 24-hour timekeeping function and different time zone display. So this one actually, the English section actually just starts there, and it doesn't go too far. In fact, the instructions are actually kind of minimal, right? Tachymeter instructions, directional bezel, and that's it. That's the end of the English part of the manual. Okay, so let's just put that aside and show you this now. So this is the leather travel case here, which I appreciate actually. You can actually take this out and just carry the watch around in this if you want to do that. You don't have to, of course, keep this together with the full case if you don't want to, right? Nice, solid, quality, what you can expect from a watch of this caliber. So here we go, guys. This is the Chronomat. So a little bit about this design here. This current design dates from the 100th anniversary of Breitling, I understand, 1984. Established 1884, 1984, they had the 100th anniversary, the centenary, and they came up with kind of this redesign with the signature bezel riders that has come to be synonymous with this particular model. So guys, I'm gonna take the camera in and zoom down to get you a closer look of this watch and make it easier for me to review it. Okay, so here we are, guys, a little bit more zoomed in and just show you the lovely details of this watch here. So this particular model is the Breitling Chronomat 44 GMT AB04 AB042011 and then /BB56. And I'll tell you a little bit about the model designation. So A is stainless steel, B04 is actually the caliber, Breitling Caliber B04, and then 20 I believe is the Chronomat model, and then 11 is kind of the dial design. I believe it's actually part of the overall design of the watch and finishing, with, in this case, brush and polish differences here. And then BB, I think it's a color designation. I might be mistaken, but it's got obviously a black dial. And then it's got 56SS. SS, I think, is referring to the stainless steel bracelet here, but correct me if I'm wrong. It's actually difficult to confirm the further numbers. The first few numbers of the model is pretty clear, I think, especially the AB0420. All right, guys. So this particular model is selling at an MSRP of $10,020 USD, so just a smidgen over 10K. Of course, in actual retail, you can get it for slightly cheaper than that in terms of a little bit of cut off the retail price. In grey retail, around $7,000 to $8,000, depending on the source that you find. Of course, I will put down any sources I can find down the bottom here. All right, so getting into the movement then. This is actually the Breitling manufacturer B04, and this is based on the original B01, the first in-house chronograph caliber, the first in-house caliber, mechanical caliber of any form that Breitling did. That was released in 2009, which I found fascinating to read about, because as established as a company Breitling is, they didn't use in-house, they didn't actually get onto an in-house caliber up until 2009, less than 10 years ago. They otherwise had been using ETA or Sellita, I think, movements mostly in their watches up until that time when they first released their own in-house caliber. So the great thing about this one, the thing that really attracts people, in my understanding, is that it is actually a column wheel chronograph. Unfortunately, there's no display back here. You're just gonna have to go with the pictures that I've shown. It's got a vertical clutch, and with that tri-complex layout in the 369, as opposed to the 6912 that the Valjoux 7750 ubiquitous layout has. I do like the 369 layout more. In this case, of course, it is a 4 Hertz movement. It's a 28,800 beat per hour movement, 48 joules, and a fantastic massive power reserve of 70 hours is what they've managed to achieve with this in-house caliber. It does have a hand winding option. It does have hacking and instantaneous date change. And the date change is quite interesting, actually. So you can see the date there at the 40 position there. So it's white writing on a black disc in this case. And I'll just show you the date change. So we're going to unscrew it and take it up to the first position. You can see the small seconds on the 9 o'clock still runs. And this is where you actually adjust the hour hand independent of the GMT hand here. Okay. So I'm going to go actually backwards. So look at that, 28, 27. So in this case, you can actually go backwards. You don't actually have to just go forward to change the date with this time adjustment. You are actually meant to change the date back and forth. You have that option here. And that's really a nice ability of this movement here. A lot of movements, you can't actually turn the time backwards to go change the date back. You're not supposed to do that. In this case, there's no other way to change the date. You actually have to wind this hour hand back and forth until you get to the right date. So that can be a bit onerous here. But that's the way it is. At least you can go backwards if that's the closer way to get to it. And then if you pull it out all the way, right, you can actually then adjust the time itself along with that GMT hand. You can see that GMT hand moving as I adjust the time, right, that red tipped one. Right? So that's actually how the time adjustment goes. Right, just going to screw back the crown now. Okay, so as you can see on the dial there, it is a chronometer. Okay, so it's actually COSC certified. I showed you that certificate. In actual use, this is running at +2 seconds per day. So, it's actually well within the expected performance. Okay, so that's the movement there. Let's move on to the case now, which is really quite a piece of work, isn't it? 44mm diameter, 316L steel, 17mm on the thickness, including the top of the crystal there, 22mm lug width, and a lug-to-lug distance between my thumbs there of 54 millimeters. So it is pretty sizable. The case itself, if you took away everything apart from the case itself, is 130 grams. Overall, with this stainless steel bracelet, adjusted length for my wrist is 207 grams. If you have a larger wrist, you leave more links in, it will be, of course, slightly heavier than that. Right, moving on to the finishing then. So if you look at the bezel, right, the top of the bezel is finished in circular brushing. Otherwise, everything else on this case is completely polished. Right? Let's just turn it around for you to see. Completely polished case, which is something that Breitling does tend to do, is almost completely polished cases, and they can sometimes cop some flack about that. You know, it does certainly attract the eye. I'll give it that. It is a watch that does pull attention to itself, and that may be a weakness depending on the purpose of your particular outfit. Right, the case back has a nice etching right in the middle. Out of respect to the owner of this watch, I've left the sticker on here, and I think if I owned this watch, I definitely would leave that sticker on as well. So it's kind of a quality control Breitling sticker with printing on the sticker itself, not just a plain sticker. And then underneath there, you can see that edge Breitling in the middle, the model number down the bottom here, and then around here it's got in French Swiss manufactured chronograph, and then over on this side water resistant 200 meters in French. It's a bit difficult to read, but you know, you can look up pictures of the case back here. That's actually what the details are around the outside here. All right, so the crown is not signed, but it is very nicely patterned. I don't know what pattern you call that. It's not quite an onion, but you know, you just have a look at that crown. And then these are actually screw-in pushers, right? There's actually a screw-in device here to stop you from pressing it accidentally. Okay, I'll just screw it out here. So with that overall screw-in parts, it is actually 200 meter water resistant rated here. Okay, moving on to the dial here, and that dial is just, I mean, there's so much rich detail in here. So matte black dial, applied indices and applied logo, the Breitling logo at the 12 o'clock position there. And then it's got those recessed silver subdials, those silver registers, and they do have a circular patterning. I'm not sure if they'll come up as I pan around on the lighting here, right there. It's got a silver circular patterning on those subdials here. The actual black of the dial itself is just a matte, but those subdial registers do have a little bit of patterning there, right? There is an outer chapter ring on the dial there, which is divided into quarter-second divisions, which is fully appropriate with this 4 Hz movement. You know, so I like that they've done that. And then it's got a 24-hour notation as well. You can see the 24 just under the 12 o'clock position there, and then you know it's got 12 here. So 24-hour notation on that chapter ring, and then on the flange, which is kind of like this extra surface on top there, you've got that tachometer scale, right? Just have a look at that. So there's a bit of three-dimensionality, which is really quite nice to look at. You know, the dial, you can make busy dials, and that can make it look ugly sometimes, but somehow they've managed to make this look very refined despite all the detail on this dial. You know, really, I do think that. Okay, the hands, right? Polished baton main hands, right, at the hour and minute hands, as well as the subdial hands are kind of this polished batons. Okay, it's got that arrow chronograph seconds in the middle, right? So at this point, I've stopped it at the right between 6 and 7. I'm just going to start it and let you see it moving. Okay, so that central chronograph with that Breitling anchor on the counterweight there. Right, that's what that is, and then it's got that red-tipped GMT, which I've shown you moving around as I adjusted the time earlier. Okay, loom-wise, there is loom for the main hour and minute hands, as well as the chronograph seconds, and then the hour markers, hour indices, and then that bezel pip there, that fat bezel pip. But that's all the loom application. So you can't read the subdial registers in the dark. You can't also read the GMT hand in the dark, but you know that's really all the function you need in the dark, isn't it? Mainly just to tell the current time, and that's fair enough, I think. All right, the GMT bezel. All right, moving on to the bezel here is this very nice solid bezel with this techie printing. You know, that 24-hour printing is this kind of tech font, which I really quite like. It doesn't look out of place in this, despite this kind of Swiss manufactured chronograph watch here, right? Bidirectional, of course, and then, you know, kind of half-hour steps, which is in 24-hour speak is actually 1 hour steps, right? That's what it is, right? Just 24-hour steps around, and there's no finer division than that, and it's bidirectional, as is a GMT bezel should be, right? Nice bezel riders there. There's 4 bezel riders in the compass positions, which is, you know, what the Chronomat design is so well known for. It's kind of iconic of this particular model, I think. All right, then the glass or the crystal on top is bi-domed sapphire with dual anti-reflective coating is what they stipulate, both on the inside and the outside. And it's got that lovely blue tinge. I mean, look at that. It's got that, you know, that blue there. It's not the natural thing of the sapphire, as I understand it. It's actually the sign of that anti-reflective coating that they use. All right, so that's the case description there. Moving on to the bracelet, this very solid, what they call a pilot bracelet, right? Very solid stuff here, tapers from 22 to 20 millimeters, you know, solid end links, of course, and also screw links. Very difficult to adjust, actually, I must say. You have to actually secure both sides to actually unscrew this. So just be careful if you're going to adjust this. You might want to get a professional to do it. Okay, so that's the actual bracelet, and then the clasp, unfortunately, probably the weakest part. Now the middle part, these scissor construction here is solid, but you can see the actual clasp here, it has pressed metal components. Right, it's nicely done because, partly nicely done because that micro adjustment is on the inside. You can see the holes there. Right, so you have to get a spring bar remover to make it micro adjustment. There's no holes on the outside here, but pressed metal case here of the clasp, and then the pressed metal keeper there. Okay, they've added an element of solidity with that thing that has been added on, that Breitling sign there, but, you know, make no mistake, this is still kind of a pretty shoddy part in an otherwise very solid watch. It's actually, it looks out of place. It's almost like it's an afterthought, actually, very odd here. This one's just a sticker to protect it from being scratched, because this part is going to get scratched most frequently, I think, if you use this on the desk or in any other situation. Okay, so that's really the whole description of the watch. Let me just put on the wrist there for a wrist shot now. So there we go, guys, the Breitling Chronomat 44 GMT on my 17cm wrist. Somehow, despite the fact that it's 54 lug-to-lug distance, it kind of sits just okay for me. And of course, overall, this is a very big watch, and probably in good taste is too large for my wrist. But, you know, in the casual situation, I don't mind sporting this. It's a very Breitling type piece with all the bling that implies. You know, certainly a lot of wrist presence there, no doubt about it. So guys, what have I enjoyed about this watch? Well, you know, I think it's one of the most recognizable chronographs around, right? I mean, you know, you've got your Daytona, your Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch, but this, I think this design is right up there. You know, Breitling-wise, the Navitimer may be their most famous model and most iconic model, but this is right up there, or a close half step behind, I think, you know. So very, very recognizable, very, you know, I think distinct. It's got its own thing, very much got its own bold design, which really does stand out and you know, kind of pulls attention. It is something that people stare at, I think, because of it's just such a bold thing and so much presence that it has on the wrist there. You know, superb attention to detail, I must say. I mean, look at those dial features. Despite the fact that it is quite busy, they've managed to keep it refined, and it doesn't look, you know, it doesn't look like a mess. It looks like everything is in place and it's meant to be there and serves a function, and everything does serve a function. You know, you've got that inside 24-hour flange there, you've got the outside 24-hour bezels, and as well as the main minute and hour hands. You can actually keep track of 3 time zones quite easily here. Okay, so it's also got a great quality finishing. You know, the bezel, you know, on the side here you can see the bezel screws, which is something special that you don't see very often in terms of bezel construction and securing. You know, they've gone for, you know, that curved case side that's very very nicely polished to a high luster all over. You know, lots of great finishing, equal to just about anything that you can care to name. You know, Rolex, Omega. You know, if you take a closer look at this, you find that the finishing is up to par to any of those ones. You know, then the movement. You know, the movement is last but not least, I'm going to say, is probably one of the biggest attraction of this model. It's a cost certified in-house manufactured chronograph featuring a column wheel and clutch mechanism that is vertical and 70-hour massive power reserve. You know, that's definitely not the least thing about this watch, and something that people kind of really appreciate, that they've gone for that B04 caliber here. B04 meaning just the GMT edition on top of the base B01 model. Right, things that I'll point out that you might want to consider carefully about this watch. It is top heavy, right? The case is 130 grams out of the 200 gram. So most watches are top heavy, but this one particularly on the wrist kind of rides on one side of the wrist. So, you know, definitely you feel it. It's not going to let you forget that it's there. With the thickness, 17 millimeters, and the ostentatious polish, it kind of precludes this watch from being broadly versatile. You know, it's kind of not great to wear this with a suit. Definitely not with a tux. You kind of get away with it with anything less, but I think in more formal wear, this probably is not in great taste. You know, somehow a Rolex sub 40 millimeter sneaks in. This one, 44 millimeter with a high polish, I think probably is, you know, you probably shouldn't use this. You could, but you know, some people would probably look down their nose, and not not completely inappropriately so. I think if somebody sported this in a super formal setting. Right, and then the last thing I would say is, you know, I've mentioned this already, the clasp construction. It's perplexingly poor. Why have they gone for this? I don't know. They really should step up their game on the clasp there. You know, everything else is so solid. Why is there pressed metal elements on here? Right, so that's all I have to say, guys. That's my review of the Breitling Chronomat 44 GMT. Let me know what you think. If you have any Breitlings, I'd like to know what models you own. If you own this model or any Chronomat, I would like to hear your views on this, of course. So guys, thank you for watching. You know, if you enjoy my videos, do consider subscribing. New content every week, always aiming to be objective and unbiased about all things horology. Thank you again for sticking with me, and as always, I'll catch you guys next time.